Hey folks, there's something I've been seeing a lot lately, and it's something I'd like to take a few minutes and talk about. I'm actually going to cross-post this on both my channels. It's that important. Something I've been seeing a lot over the last little bit, especially in the wake of the election, are people who believe that when it comes to news outlets, reliability, and trustworthiness, oh, this one group is safe, everything else is automatically fake. The unfortunate reality of the situation, people, is that this isn't how it works. You see, even the best, most trustworthy, and most reliable of media outlets can still sometimes make a mistake. They can goof. Just take your daily newspaper or whatever it is you read, see how often they have to run corrections because there was a mistake or somebody forgot to include pertinent information. Even the good guys sometimes screw up. And that's the good guys. I came of age at a time where some of the big things in the news were the Jayson Blair scandal, Gamergate, and some of that other fun stuff. Jayson Blair scandal happened at the New York Times. You had a star writer, up and coming, soon to be going places. Dude was plagiarizing or doing other things of that nature. And it took a very long time for people to finally convince the powers that be that, yeah, something bad was going down and people needed to look into it. Or with Memogate, various individuals at CBS were basically looking for an October surprise they could use against then incumbent President George W. Bush. And so someone was able to successfully sell them on the idea that, hey, here's these documents which prove there was a scandal involving Bush's term with the Air National Guard, and that people were pressured to cover it up. They were in such a rush to get it to air in order for it to be an October surprise that they never bothered actually fact-checking it. By the time the episode was over, people were already online pointing out how the supposed documents looked like they'd been cranked out on a modern-day computer and artificially aged. Turns out that's what happened. Oh, and one of the individuals at CBS had been in contact with the campaign of John Kerry, Bush's opponent. They hadn't been in contact with the Bush campaign, but they'd been in contact with his opponent. It should say something that the Kerry campaign told them not to call back because it was wrong for them to simply be calling them and nobody else. Yeah. How many people would say that the New York Times and CBS are legitimate, real news because they're mainstream veteran outlets, and even they had stuff like that take place? Yes, that's Biddy talking. There's a fly in the house. You may have just seen it go by. Granted, yeah, that was 2003, 2004. But folks, there's still scandal, nonsense, and everything else happening. You may or may not have heard about a little something called Gamergate. Started back in 2014. It's coming up on its 3rd anniversary. The origin of Gamergate, the allegation that a controversial video game developer was having affairs with several individuals who were in a position to sponsor her career, including a video game reviewer. The fly went that way, Biddy. Say what you will about Gamergate. The mainstream media did. There was only one side of the narrative presented half the time. You had to go to the same kinds of alternative sources generally derided as fake news in order to get both sides. Yeah. This is a time where the real news had the narrative, and the so-called fake news was actually trying to get both sides. And, as it unfortunately turned out, both sides had points to be made, and there were people on both sides who were taking things too far. That's not something you would have seen if you went strictly with the so-called mainstream outlets, though. Or, more recently, you had the downfall of Gawker Media. As far as much of the internet was concerned, Gawker was basically real news. Except Gawker did a lot of very bad things. They encouraged invasion of privacy up to the point of publishing things that ethically and legally they should not have published. Material that invaded someone's privacy and significantly damaged their reputation. Biddy, please. And it cost them. And I'm looking at a couple of other outlets. They're probably going to be next because they're also putting either a narrative or they're putting what personally interests them above the actual facts, above the actual story. And even in groups that are trying to be honest, we're seeing problems. There's one individual with the Associated Press. I see their name in a byline. I know it's basically going to be a garbage article. This person has a history of getting facts wrong, including major facts that are pertinent to the article. And if they're not getting facts wrong, they're violating the AP's very own style guide in a very significant and gross fashion. The fly went away, Biddy. You missed it. Get down, please. Or there's a movie reviewer from the Tribune News Service. I see her name in a byline. I know that the review is going to be colored because colored in the sense of biased before anybody says anything, because she looks at how a film fits into her politics and her social views instead of trying to be strictly focusing on the film itself. And result being that she'll downvote films that are otherwise fine but don't fit into a narrative or worldview, and she'll upvote films that most other people pan, but which, hey, they fit what she wants it to fit, so it's good to her. So what can you do to try and not get caught up in all this? It's actually pretty simple. Don't get locked into any one set of news sources. Don't just say, oh, this over here is automatically trustworthy, or this over here is automatically trustworthy, everything else is fake. No. What you need to try and do is try and get multiple sources. Even if you do 2 or 3, you're still more likely to get some sort of difference of opinion, alternate perspective, something else of that nature. And then between the multiple viewpoints, there's usually some element of truth to be had if you pick between them. Get it all together. Personally, I trawl a rather large chunk of media sources in a given day. I've got not only the paper I work for, but a couple other daily newspapers I read. There's a couple different TV news networks, both network news and some news channels I watch. There's different news websites ranging from mainstream to what people would automatically call fake, just on their face. There's various voices on YouTube and elsewhere from all across the political and social spectrum. You go in between them, put them all together, and in time you can tell, okay, this is what appears to be official narrative somebody's pushing, and this is what appears to be the substantive facts in the case. It can take a while, and it's going to require you to be a bit vigilant, but that's how it works, folks. Don't just simply presume one side is automatically fake and one side is automatically real. Presume that, at best, they're flawed but mean well, and so don't hang your hat on any one thing. That's my personal recommendation, folks. Take it however it is you want to take it. And I'm probably going to have to give Biddy his own video again of the way he keeps walking in front of the camera. Catch y'all later.